Yeah, we got some renovation done.
Bro. This is fire.
It's a nice little bar thing. Did quite a bit of decorating. Took us some time.
Yeah, holy shit. This has got to
Excuse
fluid.
me, sorry.
Oh, no worries. All right. So I want to have a chat with as many of y'all as possible, mostly pertaining to the current legislation up on the ballot, as well
Okay.
as legislation that's kind of on its way.
Okay. So everything's going otherwise outside legislation stuff. Everything's going for you in the being mayor.
I'm sorry. Say that one more time. Yeah.
Is that how things are going for you as mayor so far?
This is probably one of the worst experiences of my life.
I think what every mayor says, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate it.
I've gotten way too close of a look inside the police department, the mentality of it. It's awful. It's probably worse than y'all may imagine. I realized that most of the entities that authorize and deauthorize, like forward advancement for the everyday person, is a self-centered prick, a cunt, right? And really, it's just been endless sleepless nights with the entire administration, just dealing with backstabbing and just like, having to fight rumors. It's not been that great, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I set out on a plan, and I don't plan to stop anytime soon.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in that position myself.
It was funny. My brother said was surprised I want to run for mayor, and I think part of it was I didn't really know what he may have gone through at the time, and holy shit, it's the best way I can describe it is I'm sure you guys have heard of like red tape. This isn't even red tape. This is like, because red tape, you see it's there and you need to cut it off. This is like tape that just like comes out of the blue and just fucking you end up getting wrapped up in it. So would you like me to start now, or how you doing, Finley?
Give it a minute here. Yeah, Finn's here.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good.
Everyone's coming in for now.
Got one more coming. Kelly's coming. Coming in, Kelly. Go ahead.
Oh, would you like me to start?
Yeah.
All right.
It's fine.
So, transparently, I spent the first 2 weeks in office trying to pick a chief of police. A very grueling amount of time. 160 hours before the campaign, so I'd be prepared. 160 hours afterwards. The best way I can describe it is the vast majority of individuals I spoke to were very self-serving. They wanted the power. They only thought about the PD. Very little thought or indication that of why they should be chief of police in respect to the civilians that they're supposed to be serving and protecting. It was best described as gross. Any mention of them? How do you plan on, bridging the gap between the PD and the regular citizenry, irrespective of their record, was often met with just the best way I can describe it is everyone is a criminal or affiliated. And to me, that is not a fucking healthy mentality by any means. It's how it leads to escalations, fucking shootouts, things that could be disagreements escalate into more. And I'm a big proponent of dialogue, compromise, etc., and the police department plays the most pivotal role because they are the only ones that can throw you in cuffs and temporarily take away your rights and then some. Keep in mind that this has been on the backdrop of me being behind, fighting to get FOIA into legislation, dealing with like Tilly's case where a SIM card was illegally searched by the then detectives, dealing with them a massive cover-up, which, mind you, 2 officers were fired, Riker and Maeve, who straight up lied, altered reports, and furthermore, even though they were fired, I want you to ask yourself the question, why did it take so long? And why did it require so much of a push? Do you think the PD didn't know these things were happening, and where was their internal investigation? Right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, think about any gang in the city, right? You think you might have, like, a snitch or someone who's doing something. Wait, aren't you going to bring them aside and, like, question it and see if it's real? They didn't do any of that. There's just this presumption that because you got a badge, that everything you do is morally good and that there is no room for corruption. But the problem is that I think the PD doesn't even know what corruption is or have, like, any semblance of, like, a moral compass. Look, I'm no saint. I've killed people, right? But, you know, I've done things. But at least I had a reason for it, and I could point back at the reasons for why. And none of those things were ever, like, personal gain, you know? It was often vengeful for some greater good, if that makes sense. But unfortunately, more often than not, I feel like it tends to be self-serving. But anyways, look, at the end of the ball, this last weekend, so last Friday, like 8 days ago, we finally had time to have my entire administration start focusing on getting legislation in place where it was not in place. Business law, air licenses, pets, like you fucking name it. We're trying to catch up on the 7 months of drought. There's only 14 registered businesses in the city. 50 applications pending. And that's been from the start of the doors opening. Now, we wanted to catch up so that the last 2 months of my term could be focused on working with individuals who want to prop up businesses, you know, get some new shit going in the city, whether it's air licenses, new tow businesses, which we're a big proponent of, like fixing and making sure mechanic shops get materials. We want to get all the legislation out of the way. We spent 45 hours on those 3 days writing legislation, reviewing it. There was 5 of us writing shit to the point we got 20 pieces of legislation written. Now, this stuff isn't perfect, but it was good enough to let set sail, and with the intention that as it gets applied, as the greater city might find problems or things happen in the city, we go and alter it, right?
Yeah.
After having done all this, some of it got pushed back. Mostly civil rights that we're pushing for were unconstitutional, some bullshit reason. But we managed to push out 6 of those. 6 of them got approved and went into contest phase. This is a phase in which if there's issues with it, you know, someone brings it up to me, we can talk about it, I can alter it, and that's what that 3-day window's for. We actively did this. PD had some concerns, altered it. We had some other groups had some concerns, we altered it. Clarified language. There might be big holes that we didn't consider, altered it. But that's when something transpired, which I don't think I've ever witnessed in the many years I've been in the city. A individual went to a justice and said, I want to appeal all 6 of these pieces of legislation, but I don't want to pay the $100,000. That $100,000 was the intent was so people don't fucking shitload the fucking city hall legislation, right?
Yeah.
It was subsequently removed by the same person who told me verbatim that they were also going to try to repeal one of my things once it goes through, instead of just giving me feedback and seeing if we can alter it, right? I woke up Friday morning to a vote up on City Hall. I was given no notice. Had I not seen my email, I wouldn't even know it's up on vote. It went up just like that. And now with an entire campaign effectively demonizing the intent of that legislation and the expectations that I have for it. I can tell you right now that the intent is only for the good of the city. I get nothing. I don't get any money from this. I don't give a fuck about this power bullshit. I want people to, the civilians to have their air program. I want mechanic shops to have pods. I want tow businesses to kick off. I want businesses to start getting accepted again. Each and every one of these things I can speak to. But unfortunately, I woke up to a coordinated attack by people that don't even live in this county with a justice that changed the law midway to make sure it happens. So I'm now going to each and every group and explaining what the intent of these are, including any legislation that is out there that's up on the City Hall page, any questions you got, concerns you got. And if I'm going to be rather frank, I'm going to be going after that justice legally. I'm going to expose who's behind this. And, you know, it's, I'm not going to let the city suffer because someone has a personal vendetta or whatever the fuck the problem might be. Because the city has been stagnant for far too long. And I have the ability to bring some light to it. And I'm not going to let anyone stop me. It's really that simple. Now,
So, you're saying somebody went to a justice and had these altered to benefit them?
correct. They said we cannot afford the 100,000, and it was altered. We have the edits. We have the date timestamp.
Actually, wild.
And it gets worse. It's mostly the cops out of Blaine County that repealed 4 out of the 6. They did not tell us why. They did not communicate it. In fact, it got so bad that when they told indirectly to me that they want the police department to run Air One. They're afraid that the material reserve is going to be used for nefarious criminal means. These are fucking thought crimes, right? Like, it just, it gets deeper than this, is from the words I spoke on Tuesday with both Under Sheriff Cassidy and Sheriff Bones, because I noticed I had Cassidy pretty much crash out on me and on Peters up in Sandy over a toll booth. They have one up there. It was the besties who were just like fucking around. I don't know what the hell they were doing, but it was some like light, whatever, pretend, you know, they're playing like make believe or some shit. And Cassidy, who I have not spoken to, for Tilly, the answer is no.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, tell her stay away. All right. Sorry, there's a cop that wanted to come over. So he had quite a lot to say about me and who I was. I have not spoken to this man. So that's the reason I invited him over to my office. Because I'm like, listen, if there's tensions between both sides, I'd like to at least somehow figure out a middle ground. Because, listen, I'm going to be real with you. I enjoy a little bit of, you know, back and forth banter, right? But if shit is making people not want to get on duty, which is what they told me, I wouldn't want to be a part of that, right? I'm not that evil. The agreement at the end of it, I asked what specifically they had a problem with, and they referenced a piece of legislation that was hacked off my laptop, which is the premise for a lot of the hatred towards what my office is doing. The premise that we were going to charge Blaine County officers $3,500 for an automated toll booth. You look at the legislation on the City Hall, that is not written in there. So in other words, I've been fighting boogeyman and fears that do not exist in reality. At the end of that, there was a compromise. I said, we're going to dial it back. And I woke up to 4 pieces of legislation that was signed and picked together by none other than Blaine County Deputy Mr. Nakota. There's been zero communication between him and I. Now, the reason this sort of matters and pertains to you is I am of the very clear opinion that the police department, while they should have a voice, they should not be the significant voice in Los Santos. That voice, irrespective of whether you voted for me into office or not, belongs to you. Your needs, at the end of the day, I am your mayor, and your needs and concerns need to be my number one priority. And if you are not satisfied, I want you to know that you can call me. You can scream at me, but I need you guys to hold me accountable. And if I'm not doing what's in the best interest of the people of Los Santos, I'm not doing the job right. And that's why I'm here.
My friend and club member Jessi Adler got murdered by a police officer, and I don't think any of us have received any sort of compassion or any officers reaching out in any sort of the word. You know, nothing from the PD. No condolences, no nothing. Just people asking me up for repairs and expecting me to fix their cars because they're not the one that fucking killed her. So if you think you've done a good job with the PD, I mean, there's something for you right there.
I've been blackballed from doing anything with the PD anymore.
When you say that, you know, you're taking on feedback and you want to do good by us, how can you actually change that if you've been blackballed?
When it comes to PD related things, I'll explain what happened. The moment I picked Daisy, I spoke to a lot of officers, right? I ultimately landed on Officer Vivian Gray. Out of every single individual that I spoke to, Officer Vivian Gray was the only one that not only had a plan, but showed consideration towards civilians. Now, I had my concerns, but to ensure that I made the right choice, I wanted her to have a plan of action. Because it's one thing to say everything I want to hear. It's another to actually have a plan of how to achieve what you're saying you're going to do. Over the course of about a week, it ultimately landed with Vivian wanting the exact same police department that existed with the same individuals that ultimately led to July 3rd. And in that very moment, I realized that she was never the one. She was just blowing smoke up my ass. I spent the next 3 days afterwards speaking to 15 to 20 officers that are no longer in the police department, were a part of the skeleton crew, or a part of the X command, like Turner, Ruth. They came through. We had his name ABD something. He was Ruth's like second in command. Aldo. I started reaching out far and wide because I'm like, these fucking cops are fucking cooked. They literally do not understand the concept of serve and protect, because the only serving and protecting that they're thinking about is the fucking locals on the street, which who gives a shit about them? I ultimately landed on Daisy. Years of experience as a park ranger. Her mentality was the people matter first. If they're not looking at the police as someone they can at least talk to, then there's an issue. Everything she told me, her background, made me choose her. And she has since then, I think, has been doing a very good job, despite being faced with nasty, slanderous actions that can only be described as undermining.
Do you think she did a good job when our club member got killed and there was no one that reached out to let us know, no ounce of compassion, and people just kept pestering us?
I'd like to know more about this, and I'm going to speak to her about this. When did this happen, the Jessi Adler thing?
It was like 5-6 days ago.
Just about a week ago, last Sunday.
Wait. Hold on. I spoke to someone about this. I wake 14 hours a day right now, so someone told me, does she have a sister?
Jessi?
Yeah, or a brother? Sibling?
I don't think she has any
Fuck, someone just told me
her mother
that they watched it happen. And there was a marshal that No. Hold on. Is this the one related to Sky Faye?
No, I don't think so.
Skyfair was there.
And Sky Faye said something about fuck around and find out.
That I'm on. I don't know. I'm not sure if that was added
What
or
if this one?
was
What
said there.
situation? Where was
We're
this
talking about
situation?
the I think the Jessi shooting. Look, I can tell you this. Go through this situation with me, and I'm gonna approach Daisy on this.
Vanity, you know the most on that, no?
I mean, here's the situation, right? PD kills my friend.
Droid, thank you the Prime sub.
Regardless of the reason for it or the justification they had, my friend is fucking dead and I'm never getting them back. Not a single police officer has reached out to any of us to offer any sort of condolences, any sort of explanation, any sort of justification at all, except the only thing that we've heard is, oh, it wasn't me, I wasn't there, so therefore I shouldn't be held responsible. And you have dumb fucks calling me up trying to get their fucking car fixed. And this is all under the chief that you put in position. So what I'm saying is, you're talking about like trying to help the citizens and everything. This is your pick. This is your PD that you put in power.
Yeah.
So how is that going to change?
Finn,
Especially after you told me that you've been
Finn.
blackballed.
Listen, and that's why this conversation is happening, right? I think it's very reasonable that I'm not going to know everything that happens in the city. Nor is it reasonable for the chief to necessarily know about this. The chief of police currently operates under Los Santos. She has no control over Blaine County. Do we even know which department responded to it?
The shooting happened at the observatory. So whatever fucking state lines you've got drawn up, wherever that falls under the purview.
That's the marshals. Yeah. But that doesn't sort of change it. Let me sort of explain how jurisdictions are written up. Across roughly Route 68, just south of Bolingbrook. South of that is going to be LSPD. North of that is going to be Blaine County. The observatory, the marshal's office over here, the new center, and the military base. Those are all state under the guise of the
I don't want to
marshals.
get hung up on state borders and everything. Regardless, LSPD officers were involved in the situation, and no LSPD officers reached out about the situation. That's the long and short of it. Regardless of whose fucking department is at the top of the report, officers were involved from LSPD, and there has been no outreach, compassion, anything of the sort. Just people expecting me to fucking fix their cars and with a smile on my face.
Well, it's not even that. It's just the levels of aggression they reach with us when we even come near them.
I
I
see.
mean, let's be real.
Has
near
has
sheriff
any
the
of
other
this
day.
been communicated with the chief?
Never met her.
No idea issues.
So here's the reality of the matter, right? I think you should approach her, and I think you should say exactly what you think, Finn. Now, because at the end of the day, right, there's going to be expectations you have, but without her knowing what those expectations are, there's no way for her to mobilize. Keep in mind, in the same way I'm only hearing this for the first time, she may not even know this occurred or know that there's a problem. I think if you let her know it's a problem and tell her exactly how you feel, and then there is nothing that happens, at that stage, you have a line of responsibility.
I don't think I need to outline common human decency to the chief of police. I think that should just be innate. Don't you?
Agreed. But that's assuming she knew what happened.
How would the chief not know one of their officers murdered someone?
I think very, very simply, this happens every day.
Happens every day that officers go around killing people.
Yeah.
They should be used to how to deal with it then.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not a cop, but I've seen how these guys operate. Now, I've been labeled a criminal since day 2. No facts, no nothing. But here's a fact of the matter. While I think I may have picked the best option that we had available in the city, at the end of the day, I have zero control over them. I have tried to pass legislation that pushes them in a direction that's more pro-civilian. But it is the marshals or the justices, whatever, they're both at this point, who has blocked it. And you can see it up on the city board. I try to give you guys rights so you don't get transported and treated like just a bag of money. They said, no, not your place. Conversations that I even have with the chief get twisted into he is controlling her like a puppet. I wish I did. It's not the case. Now,
So then, how can you sit here and say that you want to have things change and talk with the people responsible when you just said you have zero control over them?
because I'm not here as the commissioner, I'm here as the mayor of Los Santos. And that means legislation. That means legislative change. That is what I'm in control of.
Okay, and let's talk legislation. That's why you're here in the first place, right?
That is correct.
And the challenges on the current things that you put through, I think we're all aware of right now.
Yeah. Here's the best way I can summarize it is that these things will put in place so they could be developed iteratively. As we find issues, they get resolved instead of trying to plug every fucking hole. Like, none of us reasonably can sit down and find every fucking problem and solve it. Like, something might happen, let's put it in there. But the intent here is, the reality is that if these things do not pass, everything comes to a halt for 3 weeks. It's how the system is designed. And, I know that there's a lot of concerns and rumors going around, and I want to be able to address each and every one of any concerns you may have, and hopefully walk away out of this as not only yes votes on the ballot, but also that the concerns you do have get addressed very quickly for the legislation. There's a lot on there, so if you guys need some time, I can definitely give you that.
I've only got one real thing that I care about, and that's the material thing that I talked to you about. Does anyone else have anything that they care about on the ballot, or anything that they've read through or particularly passionate about?
I'm not really too familiar with politics, but
Yeah, the only thing I read through was the material thing, because it's the only thing I particularly really care about.
Yeah.
I do have issues with it and the way it's been written out. And I mean, I talked to you, Nino, about it. You talked with all the mechanics about it. I think we were all in agreement that the idea of a state reserve materials is a good fundamental idea. I just have issues with the way that it's written out, how it's going to be deployed and put into legislation, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you elaborate?
It's entirely non-specific. It doesn't. It seems very generalized without. I've got it over here on my phone. It doesn't really paint a picture of what it's going to look like, how the transactions are going to happen, how the process of attaining materials is going to happen. If I do like backlogs of orders, or if I just have to wait for someone to be awake on the day, it's like I don't know how this is going to look.
Yeah. The answer is I don't know either. Here's kind of like why a lot of this legislation is written the way that it is. It's because there's a lot of moving parts, right? I want to put Wyatt of the Lumber Union, who's a logistics god, behind it, and we want to develop it over the many days, weeks, and find what works best for the city. If I had, for example, let's say put specifics into the legislation, this guy is going to run it, and then you don't need to name names,
just just an overview of how the structure is going to be and like the way it's going to operate would be enough for me, so I can just at least visualize how it's going to run and how it would affect me.
Well, so let me give you an example, right? when I ran LSC, and you probably have similar experiences, you probably had a base idea as to how that business was going to run. But as the big business began to run, some of your ideas may have ultimately found to be you needed to change things up, right? Like maybe you realize that, hey, you know what? I don't have enough benches. I need to make pods. Maybe I need to outsource the pods. By having extremely rigid legislation where we're saying this is exactly how it's going to function to like the specifics, it now removes the ability for someone like Wyatt and for us to find an approach that works, right? It's not until you start to do something you actually like know exactly what the best course of action is, right?
Well, I mean, you
Do we
said this
put
is
in
an iterative
orders?
process, right? So I understand that.
Yes, exactly. So as
But
we find
my
those
counterpoint
things,
is,
Yep.
if you have a fully constructed thing, you can still iterate on that as well. If you have a full system that you've like laid out top to bottom, you can still iterate on that as well. You know, it doesn't have to be super unspecific, generalized, and
wait,
then
what
iterate on
part?
that.
What part is unspecific? I don't have it pulled up right now. So,
Hold on, let me pull it up. It's the county will allocate funds to purchase materials from the budget and sell materials as needed to keep supply and demand in check.
correct.
So who is that going to be sold to? What businesses are eligible for the selling of materials? Is it any Joe Schmo?
That's outlined in the mechanic
Materials will be
legislation.
sold at a mechanic legislation as well. Is there a different thing that I should be
Yes.
pulling up?
So that legislation says, hey, there's going to be a reserve. It's going to be collecting material, and it's going to be giving out to, businesses. And then the mechanic legislation indicates that it will be one of them. So,
Okay. Do you know what the other businesses that will receive that benefit from the state would be?
say that again.
Do you know what other businesses other than mechanics would receive that benefit from the state?
It is only going to be auctions, which is outlined, and mechanic shops. And
Right.
if it expands out further, that's like there needs to be a need first.
And what would have increased priority, the auctions or the mechanic shops?
Mechanic shops. That is
Okay.
the primary reason for this.
Okay.
The
would-
auction is there for like any excess. Because I had a
Okay,
very similar.
That would be good to have written down on there then, if the auctions were just for excess. Because I saw that and I'm like, well, shit. If they just decide to sell it all for a profit, I'm fucked.
Well, so here's the thing, right? And this is why that sort of behavior would inherently not be possible. This is a county operation, right? So inherently, if it became for profit, those funds would show up on transactions, which would need to be publicized, and you'd see that money is going into someone's pocket. Does that make sense? So each and every
So
transaction
it
and
would be
movement,
breaking the law, right?
precisely.
I don't see an issue with outlining that it wouldn't be used to break the law within the legislation, don't you?
It does not need to be in there. Inherently, if any one of these legislations is used by the county to break the law, I get impeached. That shit gets turned down. I might as well call the marshals and just say, I'm about to do some illegal shit.
Does it hurt the legislation anyway to have it in there though?
We would
'Cause
effectively have to. I mean, what you would then? Would you put that also on like? There's going to be tow businesses.
well, in my opinion, it closes a loophole, right? Like, if anyone could find a loophole further down the line, I'm not insinuating that you would do it. I'm just saying that someone could potentially leverage this in a certain way because it leaves it open-ended.
I think if a mayor, including myself, started using it for nefarious means, right? Then that gives the police department something to chew on.
I lived 6 months through Max Thoroughbred's mayorship, where every week he was doing something to be impeached for.
Look,
Putting it all on the hands of the police to impeach someone it does not fill me with confidence. And the more checks and regulations that
Mm.
this shit can have to make sure someone doesn't abuse it, in my opinion, is better.
The public can get access to those transactions.
The public can't impeach people, can they?
But they can put it out there. Well, let me ask you a question, right, Finn? You think this shit's being used nefariously? You ask for the transactions. You see the transactions. That something would be done immediately.
I mean, the prior mayor was kidnapping people and calling out hits on them quite
Look,
publicly as well.
I
and
got
nothing was done
marshals
about
up my
that.
ass. I got Blaine County down my throat, and I got Tilly bitching in my
I
fucking ear.
heard Peters
Mhm.
say that.
Yeah. You're
He said
bitching in
my
Peter's
ear?
ear, too?
I
That's
even
exactly what Peters said.
Peter said that?
Yeah, he said that when I got my murder
Yeah.
charges dropped.
What the fuck?
I see where you're coming from, Finley, but you know, I think it's a reasonable concern. However, I don't see this being like a standard for any legislation that's written. Rather transparently, I think the way I look at it is like this. At least this is my the vision that I had writing this. Not only is it iterative, but you're gonna find things in there that give. I'll give you an example, right? We've got the tax legislation, right? Now, PD can look at that and be like, well, why isn't there things in here that say you can't, like, fake your, you know, tax records and this and that, like, you know, falsify income? A crew could say, well, why do I got to pay all this? And, like, can I falsify shit? At the end of the day, I don't think the mayor's office should be pigeonholing people in the city so much that the legislation becomes so restrictive and it becomes like a no, right? Like, if people want to go and like fake their taxes, let them like, you know, that's their risk taking, right? If a mayor goes and starts doing some like dodgy shit, that's their risk taking. Now that may result in like a fucking, you know, you guys come through, you find out that fucking Vinny Pistone's mechanic shop is getting like 90% of the shit when you get the transactions. Well, the risk of that mayor is you might come through and fucking blast his head open, right? Like,
yeah, 'cause I can just go down and blast Vinny Pistone in the head whenever I want.
yeah, but
That's not really how it works.
well, yeah, but you get my point, right? We're going back to what I'm saying, like inherently.
You're talking in an ideal world here, like that example that you just gave, like it doesn't apply. That we don't live in an ideal world.
Who do you think
Nope.
would be held accountable to find out that, if not the police, who would hold the accountability of these transactions?
Sorry, radio is fucking blowing up. Say that again.
So you initially said that there should be a line in there saying that you cannot commit crimes with this thing, right?
That's not exactly what I said. I just, but.
But
No,
you
I
get what
think-
I'm
I think
saying.
it yeah,
If
it should
there
be
was a
managed and
line
used
like
for
that,
the right
right?
purposes, yeah.
Agreed. But let's say there was a line in there that said you cannot do anything illegal. If you can't trust the police to look into it, then who's going to check to make sure it's not illegal? Because inherently it always is going to come back to the police, regardless of whether you write it in there or you don't write it in there. Do you get what I'm saying?
I guess I'm still under the belief though that more checks and balances is not a bad thing. So that
I
people can't
agree.
abuse it.
I agree. In fact, I think the fucking marshals need some fucking checks and balances. I'm going to be straight honest. But
I could agree with that.
But
too.
I don't know
those
what
revolvers
other
are cool.
fucking entity can even do it when if you only fucking knew.
Yeah. I'm gonna be quite frank. I don't have a lot of trust in the state. I haven't had a lot of trust in the state for many years of my life. I don't feel confident in voting for something that could potentially be used against me or abused later down the line by another mayor that has it out for a certain group in particular.
Yeah.
It's we're talking. You brought up things change down the line, like how mechanic businesses change, and you might need more benches. This isn't like a fucking backstreet business that I'm trying to talk about here with you. This is the state. This is the state. This is the government. This has
I agree.
overarching effect in every single possible area of my life. And if I'm gonna be confident in trying to move something within the confines of the state and vote on legislation as a citizen, I want to be confident that this legislation has my best interest at heart and that they are protected from abuse.
Who's gonna protect it if not the police? Because listen, let's say I put a line in there. Tell me what would you be comfortable with? What line?
I think that defining the specifications of shops that like not just saying primarily to essential services. I think defining these specific types of businesses would receive aid from this. I think detailing the auction idea as something, if there was ever overflow over a set amount to be auctioned off, and I don't even think that the auction thing should be introduced until that sort of threshold is found, like the comfortable threshold where things are operating smoothly, everyone's got what they need, and then and only then, when you have excess and you realize, okay, we've got a little bit of wiggle room there, then you start exploring the auction offer, try and make the state back a little bit more money. I think that the method in which how we would go about getting materials from the state needs to be explained. Whether that's going to be a back order thing, a priority thing. Am I going to have inspectors come through and check how many materials I have in the shop,
is this
how many
guy,
fucking repairs
bro?
that I've been doing?
This would be like the
or
longest
is it just
document in the
like
history.
an honor system where I just put in an order for say like 40,000 materials and that gets fulfilled, and then I can do that like maybe once a week, and then I show the logbooks to show that the repairs that I'm doing with that in the meantime is proof of the transaction being used appropriately. Like none of that. Like I can't sink my teeth into any of that and like visualize it because it's just not there.
So here's the problem with that, Finn. Let's say we put all that in there, right? And this is your theory of like how it could work. And let's say I sit here right now. I'm like, you know what? Let's go put all that into writing. We now have a 3-piece of legislation. It's going to go through another process of 3 weeks. And now every step of the way, we're going to be deadlocked on any form of maneuverability if there's even a hint of something going off the rails a little bit. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And the side effect here, right? Because here's how I view it, right? When it comes to this legislation, there's going to be pros and cons, right? When it comes to taxes, some people don't even want to pay a fucking dime. On the flip side, people are literally trying to give me money. Now, it becomes a question of like, do the pros supersede the cons? And I guess my question to you is, you see the benefit of the material reserve.
I do.
You see that the idea here is that we want to try to direct materials to mechanic shops so we don't have people asking for mechanics all day, and that there's enough parts going around, whether it's at Mosley's, whether it's at your shop, whether it's at Benny's shop, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact is that the fear that maybe I may go and like pocket money, is that enough to make you say, you know what, let's see how it works and see how this evolves forward? Like, I think that's kind of the big question that you should ask yourself. And the other question being...
Yes, I am. Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I am afraid of that happening. I am afraid of the law being used against me to further the interests of the rich and the elite.
Do you think I'm the rich or the elite? What do I got to... How about this? Because I think I'm starting to see where this is. At the end of the day, no matter what, which one of these things that are right, Finley, whether it's this materials thing or some other thing, there is going to be trust. I know you guys didn't vote for me. Am I right or wrong?
I'm apolitical. I didn't vote for anyone except Andy Jones.
Yeah.
I wrote Andy Jones on both ballots, actually, when I submitted them.
Yeah. I see. And what has she done for the Los Santos?
She's mayor of Blaine County, isn't she?
Then why is she countering the one all our legislation?
Maybe because she thinks there's loopholes that could be used against the citizen.
And what about Blaine County? Why are they countering our legislation? Why is all their legislation giving the police more equipment, interceptors, etc.? That's going to be used down here.
Okay, bring on the challenge. I love a chase.
Yeah.
You think we're afraid of fucking interceptors and more cops?
Every second
kidding
person
me?
drives a fucking supercar down here.
Are you kidding? I do a fucking like 5 cash exchanges a week, and they cops show up maybe 1 time. Are you kidding? More cops is a good thing.
What the reason I ask these questions is, you know, what you're afraid of the mayor more than you are of the police. Of what I could do.
Oh yeah, because I've seen what happens when people acting on behalf of the quote unquote state serve their own interests and you know, decide to push a population of people against into a war against a sovereign nation. So yeah, I do worry about the people on top of the state more than the police, because the police serve the interests of the state.
What are you afraid about? Where you think this money's gonna go? Like for me, with me directly, because I know we don't know each other. But
Yeah,
I think that's
I don't know. You might not do it, but
Yeah.
you know, the next person down the line might. It could go anywhere. I don't know you. I don't know where it's gonna go. I could give you benefit of the doubt and trust you completely. But can I say that to the next person down the line and the one after that? Because I don't know what the future's gonna look like. But I can see the current right now, and what I'm seeing in the current right now doesn't look like it's gonna protect me down the future if a fucking another tyrant comes in that office.
I'm starting to see your perspective here. You don't think the marshals are gonna do their job. You don't think the PD is gonna do their job. You think that if another mayor comes in place, they're gonna be self-serving.
Yep.
Okay. But you support Andy Jones,
Yes, I do.
who has been demonstrated, shown to be self-serving.
How?
She's the virtual commissioner of Blaine County Sheriff's Office.
Did she change the sheriff when she got elected into power?
She changed the entire process for how they get selected. The
But
people
she
of Blaine
didn't
County,
change the
the peop-
sheriff that was already in power.
the people of Blaine County have sat there, have told me themselves that they have not gotten a single phone call from her for the things that they need. They spend their time down here in Los Santos County. I'm just trying to... The reason, once again, I bring this up is...
I mean, the toll booths have been pretty popular right here, so
yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
people love the toll booth.
I see. Okay.
The toll?
You're not gonna get anywhere trying to undermine Andy Jones's name. All of us have a very, very special relationship with her, and I will die on that fucking hill. So if you try to ever
That
speak
makes
an
a lot
inch-
more sense.
If you ever speak an inch of bad against Andy motherfucking Jones, I will kill you where you fucking stand. Do you understand?
I think you misunderstood what I was asking.
No. I'm warning you.
Yeah. All right. All right. Is there any other legislation you want to discuss?
No, that's the only one I cared about.
All right. All right. Y'all take care.
Have a good day, man.
Well, that explains everything.